Hey everyone, happy Monday to you all, and the first Monday of 2019. So, a belated Happy New Year to everyone. Welcome to Walking Dead. We are live, and we're joined this evening by actor James Chen, who plays Cal, as you may know, from season 6 through 9 on Walking Dead. Cal, how are you? Cal, James, how are you?
Call me whatever you want. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm great. Thanks. Happy New Year. A great way to start the year off.
it's fun. I couldn't ask for a better guest to start off Walking Dead, and we have to explain to some of our fans as well too that we were going to have you about a week or so before Christmas, but that was no error on your part. It was an error on here. We had some major internet problems. As I was telling you off the air, it was like in 1997 or 1998 again, dial up. All I needed was squawks and squeaks of a modem, and I would have felt like I was back there.
Well, I'm glad we could reschedule. Yeah, great way to kick off the new year, and I love that theme song, man. I would totally work out to that at the gym.
Thank you. Well, I'll send you an MP3 of it for sure. I appreciate that. Thank you kindly.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, and I also want to say hats off to your PR team too. Status PR, is that correct?
Yeah. Know that status.
Great team over there. Very accommodating as well too. So hats off to them for facilitating and making this happen as well too. So we're going to jump over a couple times to our live chat. We have a live chat where people will be asking you live questions throughout the evening, and then we'll jump back and forth a little bit. But over in the chat so far, we've got Ken Wong here, my beautiful better half, Nocturnal Butterfly. Amber Gray's here saying hello. FNAF Gamers is here. Lost Smoke is here, and Ken Wong as well too. Happy New Year to everybody. I posted the link here as well in some of the Walking Dead groups as well too, so we'll have some fans coming over. But before we dive, we're going to dive in and out of the Walking Dead swimming pool a few times here tonight. Maybe you can kind of start off by telling us a little bit how and why you got into the world of acting.
Oh wow, yeah, sure. I guess growing up, I wasn't involved really in acting. It wasn't really something that I was in contact with growing up. I always had a great imagination. I loved drawing. I did play the piano, but as far as performing arts, it's not something I got into until college, really. But I certainly was keyed into it. Oddly enough, in high school, watching Jay Leno every night, and I absolutely loved going to the movies. As a kid, it was my buddy and I would go to the movie theater, do double headers, triple headers, play video games in between, and that world and seeing movies was just kind of merged my interests of imagination and storytelling and action. I loved martial arts growing up too. So finally, when I went to college, I had a chance to explore it. And by the time I was graduating, it took a life of its own. I was ditching class to write and direct these plays. I had exhausted the one or two classes I could take as a non-major, and I was taking all these classes downtown. This is in Philly, and had gotten an agent. Was going to auditions, booking commercials, and and that's kind of how I got my first taste, and it kind of affirmatively answered the question with a big exclamation mark that this is absolutely something I definitely wanted to do with my life. So
Well, that's a cool
that's
answer.
how I got into that.
What movies really? I'm sure, like myself, I can remember a few movies. My parents were much older than me. I was kind of the last of five children, so my dad was old to take me to movies, and I never went to concerts or things like that. But there was a couple movies that moved me. I remember seeing Star Wars with my dad, and I saw some Titanic movie. It wasn't the Titanic, James Cameron, whatever. It was some kind of archaeological Titanic movie, but it really moved me as a movie because I was spending time with my dad and that. But what movies for you kind of shaped you? You said you really enjoyed movies. Can you name a few that really moved you and maybe thought, I'd like to be that guy?
Absolutely. I remember every time I think back to that time, I think of seeing Desperado with Antonio
Oh,
Banderas.
yeah.
And yeah, just thinking the atmosphere and the tone of that world was so thick, and Antonio Banderas was such a cool badass, and just this idea of these secret guitars that could had all these surprises in them. I just thought that was awesome. And I remember specifically I went to go see The Matrix with my dad.
Okay.
Actually, as well. That's my father-son movie experience. We had no idea what we were walking into. Because usually, especially at that time, I was always kind of looking ahead, watching trailers, keeping track. and we didn't have any of that time. We just kind of walked in there, and I remember there's that one scene where Neo and Trinity are breaking Morpheus out of the high-rise tower,
Right.
and they swoop in a helicopter with a Gatling gun, and like they're just these like gratuitous bullet shots of like the bullets coming down from underneath. And I just remember like watching that, being like, "This is insane," and like that was also like kind of a perfect merger of like gun action with martial arts and sci-fi, which I also love. I just absolutely love that. So,
very good answer. I enjoyed all of the Matrix as well too, and seeing them in the theater first again, big IMAX, one of them, which was really cool. But fantastic movie. I'm a big sci-fi fan as well, like the Star Wars and things like that. Can't get enough of it. Yeah.
What are some of your sci-fi faves?
Some of mine. Well, Star Wars I can watch a million times over. I can pretty much recite the dialogue. I don't know. It's like Blade Runner. I'm fan of that as well too. Oh man, there's so many. I'm a big fan of the Star Trek, more so the TV series than the movies and the old TV series. I'd love to binge watch that again sometime. Just about anything sci-fi I can take. Close Encounters is something I saw that as a kid. Watched that over and over to the point where I wore out the video cassette back in the day. Believe it or not, that shows my age. A VHS tape. E.T. I'm not afraid to say I love that movie. Pretty good as well too. Yeah.
Excellent movie.
No, you're too young to probably remember using a VHS, aren't you? Did you ever have one?
I did, yeah. I think my sister and I would like watch a lot of Disney movies.
Okay, yeah.
Of that, and yeah. I think the first movie I saw in the theater was Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Okay.
Actually. That was terrifying because I was very young.
I honestly think the Disney movies, those collector's ones that always come in the white cases, were responsible for selling a lot of VHS players because every parent out there was buying those collectibles for their kids, and got to have a VHS player. So
that's
right. Cool.
Get them now before they're closed in the vault for 20 years.
That's right. And then they come back out. We're opening it back up for a remastered version with a new cover and a little bit more friendly for kids and all this other kind of stuff. Because back in the day, everything was not PC like it is today. You know what I mean? It was complete opposite. You could get away with so much with artwork and little subliminal things. Now it's like, oh boy, we don't dare offend anyone.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting for sure. So you talked about college though. Was it Yale that you studied at?
I did. I studied there for like graduate school. I got my master's in fine arts there for acting at the drama school there at Yale. Undergrad, I was at UPenn in West Philly.
Okay.
Like it's almost like two separate like lives.
Right.
Like, because basically like up until I graduated Penn, that was like I wasn't really immersed in the acting thing. But yeah, man, I was like, Meryl Streep was one of my favorite actresses, still is. At that time, though, her movies were something that I was, I guess, like watching more frequently.
Okay.
And I just, there's some research on her. I found this amazing like biography on her in the library at Penn, and kind of read up about her career trajectory and some little things about her life and how she went to Yale and her time there. And so that kind of cued me into doing research and, into the school and going up there and just meeting some of the amazing teachers and artists and students there. So yeah, I was very lucky to have my time there.
It's funny that you mentioned her because I like a lot of her movies as well too, but one that and this is going to sound funny, but I'll explain why. One of the movies I love of hers is the Julia Childs biography. I forget the name of the show, whatever, but when she portrayed her.
Julia and Julia.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Because it was the one girl was writing the biography or like the blog about her, and that's what it was. Because my better half here, Sandra Lee, Nocturnal Butterfly, as you know, we're in a chat. She's a cook, and she's been a big fan of hers for life. So I think she got me to watch it, but I loved it. I think she was phenomenal in it.
Yeah, she really is incredible. It's kind of like one of the interesting things that I think like what interests me in acting is I think what she does with her art and her career is like she really explores character transformation, and I think that is really, I don't know, for me it's like really exciting and interesting because you really get to study people and what makes a person. It's and yeah, in that particular show, Julia and Julia, she all of her kind of portrayals, or she really embodies it, like with so many layers. Like I was just rewatching clips of her from playing Margaret Thatcher.
Okay.
And God, just her detail is like fantastic. So I love her for that.
She really absorbs a part for sure, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Very, very cool. There's a question here from Amber in the chat. We're going to jump over to some Walking Dead related questions.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure how many you've worked with per se on the show, but I'm sure you see them on set. She's asking, are the walkers as scary in person as they are on the show?
Yeah, they're scary and surprising. Well, yes and no, because it's like you'll be like walking around set, maybe, and then maybe you'll turn a corner, or the walkers will come out, getting ready for their places, and to see them in the flesh, so to speak, like with all the detail, because I mean, everyone on this production is just like world class in what they do, and the special effects, the makeup is one of the things I think that made this world and this show so successful. Is they're asking, I think, really good artist storytelling questions, like what would it really look like if this person's like flesh died, and like what does it look like to rot, and kind of going back to this idea of detail, right? Like they spare no expense, and they, especially for like some of the hero walkers, they've got, which I think we've all seen from the show, like contact lenses in to make the eyes look really glossed over, or bloodshot or white or yellow, and the teeth and the hair, and just like all the speckling on the face, and it's really awesome. But then the funny part is then, before it's go time, they're just kind of like chatting.
The regular people
for lunch, and that's like weird to see someone who looks like that just kind of talking to you like, you're just like shooting the breeze, or just to see them at lunch, you know what I mean?
Like eating real food.
Yeah, or like having a smoke or something.
Yeah. Well, you've been there since season 6, and there's been evolution in every season. So I can imagine what you've seen. They're kind of aging them somewhat. You know what I mean? So they're a little different. And Greg Nicotero, I mean, from what I know about him, which isn't a ton, but I've been studying him since I've been a fan of the show. What a genius! What creative genius!
Yep. It's amazing that I see him directing episodes. We're there together. And then sometimes he'll be there. Maybe he's not he's not playing point for direction for that episode, but he's the man there for the special effects. And it's like, oh wait, you are a master at this too. It's really impressive and really inspiring. The detail that they cast in Walkers. I remember this was, I think, a couple seasons ago, where the Saviors come to the hilltop, and they have this truck, or a little car that they are blasting classical music out of.
Okay.
And like Jesus and Sasha have to come out to kill the walkers that have come into the hilltop at the time. And there's this one hero walker that they cast that, at least in the script, was supposed to be killed bent over backwards over the fountain at the hilltop. And they had this amazing contortionist actress to be that kind of special kind of a specialty attention walker. And to really achieve the effect, that she was brutally killed, but also that a decaying body would do that as well. So kind of gives it that freaky
element. Is very cool. Yeah, I think that was, if I remember correctly, that'd be the scene where I think Maggie was going to use, or did use, the big green tractor as well. That's right? That's
the one. Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, and that saves a little bit of work in post as well too. I'll share a movie little thing here, a useless fact for the day, but some people in the chat will appreciate it. And I know a lot of people have seen Dawn of the Dead. Have you seen Dawn of the Dead?
Which one is that again?
Well, that's where Greg Nicotero actually appeared in that one. He was acting in that one. He could have been more than 17, 18 years old, but way back in 1978. But here's the cool thing. I've seen it maybe
Wow.
two to five times, maybe somewhere in that neighborhood. And my son is really into the band Gorillaz. Are you familiar with Gorillaz?
Yeah.
Okay. So, pretty,
Sure,
good
Gorillaz.
pop band, and he's made me a big fan of them. So there's this one song they do, and he's going to kill me for not knowing the name of it, but I think it's M1A1. And it starts off with this thing where you're hearing, and it sounds like a British accent, and you're seeing like this guy yelling at what sounds like he's in a megaphone. And to me, it sounded just like Damon Albarn, who's the singer of the band. He's also the singer of Blur. But he's like, hello, hello, something like this. Can you hear me? Whatever. And you hear this like heartbeat kind of thing. And I always said to the boy, I said, you know what that sounds like? That sounds like something from an 80s B movie. And then he was watching a video one day, and he was showing all the samples that the Gorillaz have used. I don't want to say the Gorillaz used in their music. And sure enough, it was taken from Dawn of the Dead, the intro to the movie, right when they're going down the street, trying to call to see if there's any walkers or zombies in the buildings. And so instantly I said, you know what, now we got to watch that movie again. He's already seen it. And just because we put the two and two together, Gorillaz and then that, it brought in two worlds that was just so cool. It was a real fun experience.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. And you got to, if you haven't seen it, you got to watch it because number one, I know Greg Nicotero always throws things back there to, working with the talent that was there. Like he studied under them, and learned a lot of the techniques to bring to The Walking Dead. And coming from that to not only creating some of these visuals that we see, now making, directing several episodes, shooting, filming, been a walker himself several times. I mean, talk about a guy with many hats.
Yeah, I mean, clearly he's just like doing what he loves, right? Like
Exactly. Over here in the chat too, we've got another comment from Metal Stage. Senator says, "Congrats on the master's degree. Not an easy task for sure," and I agree with that. Nocturnal Butterfly says, "I'd faint if I turned a corner and ran into one in costume." I tell you, that's the thing. They're so creepy looking that even though you're probably used to seeing that day in and day out, I'm sure there's a couple times when you come off of a scene or turning a corner and there's an actor in walker costume. It may throw you for a loop the odd time if you're not focused on getting away from them.
Yeah, it's true because again, it's like the detail is so great. You could just be coming out of the bathroom, or maybe like you're in the bathroom and like someone's in there. It just feels like violation, private moment. But they're really cool people. I remember this one moment, you get to know them over the years, and the actors who portray them, and so we were on set, and then like a group of walkers had come onto set, but they were in full walker makeup and prosthetics, and but one of them, if you're on the inside looking out, you can't, everything looks normal to you,
Right?
So they were just like, "Oh, hey, what's up, James, how you doing?" I'm like, hi.
That's got to be so creepy.
Yeah, because it's like I have no idea who you are. So that it's actually like really funny. Like I'm trying to figure out some awesome skit to make out of that because I think that'd be good.
I'd love to see some outtakes and just some behind the scenes, you guys having some fun with your cell phones and stuff like that too with some of the walkers. But I think what's going to be even weirder, and we'll jump into this a little bit tonight, and there's some things we won't go down too far deep into it. But we're talking about the Whisperers coming up, and we're only about 5 weeks away from the return of the show, getting to see more about the Whisperers. Now we're seeing, masks purposely, actors wearing masks to look like walkers. So that's going to be a fun thing as well too. We've already had some hints at that. Have you had a chance in your role so far to see any of them on set? Like, we won't say what you've done with them or anything like that, but have you encountered them in your travels?
I feel like I don't know. Maybe I can't really comment exactly on that.
Okay,
but,
I know what you mean there.
But I've seen what you've seen too. Like
Okay.
there's been some amazing promos of someone stitching together what it looks like rotting flesh, and they put it on like a grotesque mask, and I mean you just be rest assured that Greg and the whole team are whatever they create, it's going to be amazing. And they've got some very talented people on it, embodying as well. So
it'll be interesting to see. It's going to be definitely a big back half for sure. It seems like it's, we wait so long for these season premieres and then they go by like that. Next thing you know, we're counting on these last few weeks before the back half of season 9, and it's going to be over before we know it. But hopefully we can take this last half as slow as possible. I don't think we're going to be playing the waiting game with this last half of the season. I feel it's going to fly pretty fast pacing wise. I feel.
I guess, yeah. I mean, the thing that was awesome about the first half was like how much change there was,
Yeah, huge.
Right? And time jumps and things like that. So, yeah, it's like a whole new world.
It certainly is. Speaking of which, too, with some of the actors that we'll talk a little bit about the departure of Andrew Lincoln later on in the program as well, too, and see how that affected you. Maybe him being a bit of a role model to you and other people on the set. And we'll talk about other departures too. With maybe this is temporary with Lauren Cohen. There's rumors that she's coming back and things like that. We don't have to address the rumors or anything. But you were actually in her last scene on the show too, right? Was that the very last one where you were riding in the wagon and encountered by the Savior? So that was her last scene, wasn't it?
She was in other scenes after that.
Okay, that must have been. I feel bad. I don't know that. That must have been episode 2 or 3 of yours with her. I have to go back.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, because she after that she comes to Alexandria for the first time in a while. She's like, time's up. Like Negan's gonna get it. In like episode 6 or something like that. But yeah, no, I mean Lauren's incredible. An incredible human, incredible actress, incredible leader. She's so well seasoned as an actress, but also just on that show in particular, she knows everyone and is absolutely a role model. And I'm so happy for her with her latest show. I hope she does really well, and I would love it if she would be able to do both. So.
Well, fingers crossed we might see her back for season 10. Hopefully, it would be nice. Question for you. Sometimes this happens with some of the actors and actresses that get the gig on the show. Some of them, and it could be yourself, I don't know this, but some of them are diehard fans, just like we are watching the show and like, oh man, I love the show. Oh, now I'm an actor on the show. Some people know the show, some people don't. Vincent M. Ward, who played Oscar on the show, had him back a while on the show, probably about a month ago. And he actually got the gig and he didn't even know anything about it. He's on the set and he's talking to other people and they're like, what's this Walking Dead thing all about? Didn't know anything about it. How about you? Where do you fit in that scope? Were you a fan and got the gig, and maybe even share how the gig come about?
Yeah, 100%. I knew of the show. It's like a worldwide phenomenon, but I hadn't gotten into watching it yet. Or I guess this was around the time. I guess at that time, season 5 had finished airing, so I had gotten this appointment to audition, and I didn't know. Yeah, again, I didn't know much about the show. I didn't really have much time to do a lot of research on it. But yeah, I just kind of sent in my submission, and I'll tell you one thing. That was actually kind of an interesting experience because I directly from Scott Gimple was told via my agent, yeah, this is great, and he gave me some adjustments. Mm-hmm. So I had kind of sent the tape back and forth 2, maybe 3 times. Finally got slightly adjusted sides, and then I was told I booked that role. And there's a lot of secrecy around the show because diehard fans, mm-hmm. and who can't blame them. It's an awesome story. So I didn't realize till I got on set for my costume fitting that the person I was there to, that I thought I was there to play, is actually not who I was there to play.
That usually happens.
I was like, yeah, I'm here to play. I'm playing Josh, and they're like, no, you're playing Cal. I'm like, no, it's Josh, and they're like, no, trust me, you're playing Cal. And they had this 2 poster boards full of stills from the graphic novel of Cal, just getting every detail, the haircut, the clothes, and the texture right. So that was that was my kind of a crash course introduction to the show. So I was immediately trying to read up Cal's presence in the graphic novels and stuff.
Well, you got some martial arts background, like you were saying. You studied martial arts. Cal is a martial arts artsman or whatever. So
yeah, 100%. He definitely is skilled in the fighting arts and is an experienced warrior, protector. it's so funny, not funny, but just like kind of awesome, like wrapping your head around all things apocalypse, because it almost like devolves back into like medieval times, like guild era, and like it makes me think of like those video games where there's like different classes, like
Yeah.
like warriors or like magicians or things like that. And I feel like there are, especially at the hilltop, where there's like I feel like a lot of delegated roles for a big community like that. Like I just feel like Cal is like very, very like entrenched in like the warrior class and just that skill set, and that's kind of almost like it's his professional job,
Well, the good thing is as well, too, good for you so far anyway, is the fact that people that do read the comics, Cal led a bit of a shorter life than what the TV show does, which is nice for you as an actor and, potentially a fan of the show as well now, too. It's nice to have a little bit of an investment in the show. So, feathers, hats off to you on that one, and fingers crossed that we can see you survive a little while. Season 6 through 9, not too bad. You certainly can't complain with that.
Yeah. Too bad, not complaining. Yeah,
that's right. And I see a lot of the actors too that do exit the show in a death or whatever. They're still fans of the show, and you see them rooting from the couches, just like we do, the armchair quarterbacks. Even though they're not invested in the show anymore, that's how much they love it. So it does seem like a big family there.
Oh my God, so much. Like in front of, behind the camera, it takes so many people to make that incredible production, like day after day, episode after episode, year after year. Many of the people there have been there from the very beginning, and they're just absolutely wonderful people to work with. Every department, and I think it shows. I don't think you could make a show that good for that long if you really didn't if you just didn't have a great gelling of people together.
I agree. That's very well said. Two questions here. One from Nocturnal Butterfly. She says, who is James' favorite actor or actress, and his favorite character on the show, if it's different? So maybe you could have a favorite actor that's outside of The Walking Dead, and who's some of your favorites? Maybe it's a fun, bonding moment or buddy or whatever on the show, and maybe answer to both of those.
Oh, for sure, man. It's hard to name a favorite actress, I guess, actress in particular.
Either or.
She asked.
Yep.
I mean, it's funny. Just before we got on, I was watching Sandra Oh's acceptance speech for the Golden Globes last night.
Yeah.
And I mean, right now, she's definitely I can't stop thinking about her because of what that achievement meant to Asian American actors and to just Asian Americans in general. Huge milestone. I love her, not of course as an amazing actress, but just kind of as a role model, as someone who represents us really well and speaks up about representation and diversity in really productive ways. Also, I'll throw in I've always loved Cate Blanchett.
Okay.
I just think she's incredible. I've had the chance to see her live on stage before, and as an actor, I just think she's an incredible artist. I love watching. She's so talented. Every joint of her body is committed and inspired in the performance. That's really awesome. And yeah, on the show, oh man, God, so many of us. Let's see. This is in no particular order or this, or anything like that. But Peter Zimmerman and I. Peter plays Eduardo.
Yep.
He's at the hilltop. He and I have spent a lot of long days and nights together as guards and warriors of the hilltop. Either atop those hilltop rampart gates in the blazing Georgia sun, which is just unforgiving, or 3, 4, 5 in the morning for a night shoot.
Yes.
Running around, jumping out of windows.
He's a musician too, right?
Yeah. He's a great rapper and kind of hip hop performance artist.
The only reason why I know that, I mean, I don't follow him as closely as I do your career, but this is so weird how I discovered it. Brandon Davis from comicbook.com, he directed, I think it was his first time ever directing a video, but he directed his rap video.
Oh, is that right?
That's cool. Yeah. Small world.
He's got a lot of things going on. Yeah, he's a hustler, man. He's putting the material out there, which is great.
So he's your wall gatekeeper buddy. That's cool.
Yeah. But there's so many of us, we're all there, just kind of like surviving.
That's right. That's right. There's a second question here from Lost Smoke in the chat says, was the agent essential in you getting commercials, or was there a way you were able to do that on your own? His name is Chris, I guess. So
Was the agent
essential in getting commercials? Have you done some commercials? And is there a way, or did you do that on your own kind of thing?
I got it all through my agent.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. Like, I haven't gotten an appointment on my own. Maybe like not since in like over 10 years, maybe 15 years. But like, there is certainly a lot of work that can come that way.
Mm-hmm.
In the past few years, I've gotten referrals from friends who are doing like maybe more print stuff. Like they do more of like they're more kind of lifestyle print things. Like they might need someone who fits my look, and yeah, I'll kind of just get a shout out to see if I'm free to come in for one of those castings. But yeah, I feel like agent is a very essential tool in the biz if you want to operate at a certain level. Yeah.
Well, instead of you making all the phone calls and the emails and all the back in the day when it used to be faxes to people, you can be working on what you're doing, whether it be a gig here or there, and pick up the phone and say, yes, I can do it, or no, I can't. Oh, well, here's how much it is. Yes, I can do it, blah, blah, blah. But it's less manual labor for yourself while you're doing what you do best.
It's true. It's true. I mean, like, agents and managers too, it's like that's like their bread and butter in the sense of that's what they're doing day in, day out. Mm-hmm. Like, even when they're off the clock, I think it's all about kind of communicating with the different players in the field about figuring out like what is coming down the pike as far as auditions and even projects, tracking those projects, following up on those people after they've secured an appointment, and then you've done your work, you've gone into the room, and then it's kind of like making sure that you're on top of mind, that sort of thing. It's a very yeah, it's weird. It's like
it's not a glorifying job either.
They do a lot of legwork for sure. A lot of like staying on top of things. Yeah. I think it's teamwork.
Same thing with the PR, even with the the publicity people as well, just like your team there. I really appreciate it when I come across someone who actually gets it and cares, because I'm a small time podcast. And the biggest portion of what it takes me to get ready for a show is, number one, getting a hold of publicists, managers, agents, whatever. Every once in a while, you're lucky to speak to someone in public at a convention or something like that when it comes to the music side of things. But I'm spending countless hours on that kind of thing. And then once I physically get it booked, then it's planning the itinerary for a show. So I really appreciate good publicists and agencies like yours when you come across it, because you got to stay so top of mind or you're swept under the rug. And I've been chasing a couple people for 2 years, and you almost say, you know what, I'm going to give up, but then you give up and all that time was wasted, so you can't give up.
Yeah, it's true. It's like I feel like every knock on the door is like brings you a step closer.
That's right.
And I'm very lucky to have some great people that I can work with over the years.
Here's a funny question. I tried not to laugh. It's a good question, but it's a funny question. Where is it again? James Denton says, "Have you got interactions with Dog, Daryl's new buddy?"
Not yet, but I agree. I love that Daryl calls his dog Dog.
I know.
It's like naming your baby.
No, that
I haven't, but that's like the coolest dog.
I know. I would think that did Norman Reedus actually name him, or was he provided? I know that's not his real name because he has another name, but did he name him that on the set, or is it given to him somewhere else?
Oh man, I think those were our writers.
Okay.
Having Daryl call his dog. It feels like a very. I mean, I could be wrong.
It seems like a Daryl thing.
It does, right? Like I have to ask Norm the next time I see him, but yeah. It's like that seems like that's something Daryl would do.
That's pretty cool, and we'll see more of them for sure. Obviously, in the back half of 9, and there's already petitions out there too. If Dog dies, it used to be if Daryl dies we riot. Now the dog has his own petition out there to save him.
Is that true? Don't
Yeah.
kill dog.
Yeah, there's some petitions out there. So the fandom out there and the Walking Dead family, now the Walking Dead dog family, is pretty strong.
Yeah, yeah. Animals, man, they hit right to the heart. Like
They
poor
do.
Sheila.
And it's kind of a new twist on the show. Like I really feel like a lot of us obviously do, and you do, I'm sure, as an actor, it does feel like a new show. And maybe we'll jump a little ahead of ourselves. Well, one of the questions I had later on in the program was to talk about Angela Kang now, picking up the reins of showrunner. First of all, I've loved her as a writer. She's been involved in, I'm going to estimate, around 25 to 30 different shows. I've watched the IMDb. I watch all the Wikipedia to see when she's written some good ones. And as I told you off the air, I was a big fan of the earlier seasons. First four, we'll say, were my favorites, and the first two, second, third, and fourth. Well, second and third for sure. Glenn Mazzara was at the helm as a showrunner, taking over for Frank Darabont, and I really liked his writing. I'm a friend with him, of his, and I get biased, right? Like when your friend leaves a show, you tend to like, oh, this is a drag, and when Angela was, announced as a new showrunner, I was like, this is going to be great. And how has it felt for you and maybe some of the other staff of the show, changing the family element a little bit and bringing in some, not necessarily new blood, but new leadership blood? How has it been working with her?
It's been awesome. Yeah, Angela's fantastic. She's I think one thing I've been kind of noticing in like the scripts, and probably you've seen it as well this season, season 9, is obviously, like, there's like kind of those like logistical plot things to get through of like Rick's like taking a hiatus from the world for a bit, but a lot of the scenes they're developing like a lot of two-person scenes. It almost feels like it's like very relationship based, which it's always been a relationship based show. It deals a lot with like family and trust and kind of like a foster kind of a family that you create through circumstance. But I feel like there's just been that much more focus on things this year because there's been a lot of change, like those first few episodes this season, it's like people are kind of calling into question the decisions Rick made at the end of season 8, to not kill Negan, and like patience is kind of wearing thin, and people have different ideas about how to move forward. Like after the saga that culminated in season 8, people are like, now what is the best thing to do? And so I think it's been really awesome to see a lot of those two-person scenes come out, like Lauren or Maggie and Rick, Maggie and Daryl, Daryl and Rick, like people who were maybe like your got your back 100% on your side all the time, like what you do, like I'll support you whatever you do. Now it's like that kind of, I guess, with the threat of Negan kind of like not so primary anymore, like surviving on a day-to-day basis, not as like, well, at least not having like the saviors trying to kill you every moment, like kind of like there's a little more room to breathe and think and have your personal kind of agendas, I guess, come to the forefront and like express your personality about how you would, what do you feel like is a just way to handle this situation, to deal with someone like Negan, have a prisoner of war like that.
I agree with you 100%. You really feel it, and this, like you said, how, oh yeah, I got your back. Whatever you say, boss, I'll follow you, whatever. And now you're seeing the complete opposite. Carol was someone would always pretty much agree. Daryl, especially, whatever you want to do. Rick, I got you. Maggie, same thing. And Rick's like saying to Daryl, we're on the same team here, man. And it's like, are we really on the same team? And you're feeling that friction, and you can start to feel the glue coming apart. Even though Rick doesn't necessarily always want to be that leader, whether he wants to be or not, he was in that position, and he was the foundation around him was coming apart because the people he could always count on, the Maggies and the Daryls, the Carols, are starting to question, almost everything. Even though he's trying to do things to, honor Carl, a lot of those decisions, keeping, not executing all the saviors, You know, it sounds like a harsh thing to do. And if you're looking at this from the outside of the box, you know, a lot of people say, well, if you're looking at this, you don't know Negan and you're seeing Rick for the first time. He could be the Negan, this villain. You don't know why he's doing it, but it's kind of, you know, it's kind of a oxymoron. You know, catch-22, damned if you do, damned if you don't. You're going to be the bad guy if you kill these people, but if you don't kill the people, you know, look where you're left at. But yeah, I like the dialogue you're talking about between two people. You're seeing real, like, commanding performances from two actors at a time. And something I shared with you off the air, and I think is coming back a lot now too, is that's how I got into this whole Walking Dead thing years ago, was studying the music of The Walking Dead. And I found those first few seasons of The Walking Dead, music was paramount. And this was before they really started using band songs. And I just did a video the other day, actually. It's a news story that was shared all over the internet. And I just used some of the ideas from the news story. Slash from Guns N' Roses and, you know, his own solo thing. He submitted some music back to The Walking Dead at umpteen years ago, whatever. I don't know how long ago it was, but it was rejected. And the reason why it was rejected is because one of the cool things about The Walking Dead is it doesn't want to date itself. You know, it doesn't want to lock itself into a time period. So, you know, we can watch this show 20 years from now and still feel like this is a cool period of time, whatever the time may be. Now, sure, you know, you're not dating it with, like, you know, old computers. Like, you know, you look at a computer, you know, it's like in 1987 or something. But outside of that, it's kind of timeless. And they don't really date the thing. But the music now is coming back, I find, from the first few seasons where it's kind of ominous. It's an actor in the show just as much as some of you guys and girls on the screen. It's really emotional.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that, and that's a really good point about, like, not dating the show, which I guess is kind of, it makes sense, right? Not only because, like, yeah, we want this series to stand the test of time for other generations who don't watch it when it was aired, but also just, like, that idea of the apocalypse. Like, once the apocalypse happened, that kind of, like, it becomes kind of timeless, because like technology goes away and all you can really do is, like, count the days by the sun and make your own little calendar, and, like, who's making all those pop references are almost like pre-apocalypse things. So anything done or experienced now, it would be like I don't know, post society.
Exactly.
That's cool. I mean, another thing I was going to say before, as far as, like, what I love about the relationships and how kind of, like, old loyalties are breaking down, is at the same time there are new ones forming that are really awesome to track and to watch, like what's happening with Carol and Ezekiel and the kingdom, and they've kind of got Henry as a son. And that idea of a family, you know, trying to make a family despite everything else that's happened, you know, between, like, having a husband and a wife and a kid and a son who, you know, is like more of a foster son, and yet they call each other mom and dad, and the kingdom is their home. Like, I just find that, like, a really awesome idea of trying to, like, anchor yourself in kind of like one of those, like, immortal human nature relationships. You know, you want to have, like, a mother and a father, and like those scenes where Ezekiel, like, has to discipline Henry for going against his wishes, or Ezekiel has to, like, lay down the law as a father and things like that. That's, like, really cool to watch, because I don't feel like we didn't really see a lot of that, not since the first early seasons where you had those original family units, like Carol and her daughter Sophia, or Rick
and Lori and Carl.
Carl, exactly.
Yep.
Okay, I guess that was always, like, the long-standing one, but that was it's cool to see it with like, you know, Ezekiel and Henry, because it's like a way that we haven't seen them before, you know, and that's really cool.
You can tell that Ezekiel wants to be the cool dad, but he has to lay down the law too. You know, it's got to be so hard for him now. He has a son, which is probably, like, the ultimate cool for him. And Carol's had a child and lost. So I don't know the full story if Ezekiel had a child before. but now he's got to be dad, and you can't be best friend anymore. But it's so funny. I don't know what you're saying. Like you're seeing real world reality. Like Henry goes to walk off, and Carol's like, it's almost like, hey, I don't get a kiss before school, and he has to come back, give her a kiss. It's awesome to see.
Yeah. It is really cool.
You were talking about, we were talking just for a second on the dating too, the dating aspect of the show, time periods, not dating as in, going out on a date. But they're really cool, even with sets when it comes to cars. Now, I know there's people who argue this. There's some modern cars, of course, but you're not seeing like an Escalade, rotting out off on the side. You're not seeing any, they're very careful. The people might say, well, that's a fairly modern car, but you can't really say that's a 2017. So I really like how they do that.
Yeah. They do such a good job with like de-stressing these cars and making them look like they've just been out there rusting for, years. Which I think it just feels like very true to life. Like everything is kind of abandoned, has this abandoned look to it.
That's right.
And they've done some like kind of new twists with cars this season. Like you've seen in the first half of season 9, where they're like, there's like this idea that there's been the passage of several years between season, I guess, the end of season 8 and where we are at the mid-season right now, and like time is passing, and like they just need more vehicles, and it's like, how do people like that repurpose those sorts of things? How do they combine what they have together to get what they need? And so they've got like some of the carriages that horse-drawn carriages that we have are like horse or mule drawn, but they're like the chassis of a pickup truck or something.
Yeah. It's so almost like not Mad Max, of course, but kind of a couple steps before, right?
Right.
I like that. Yeah, repurposing is a good word for it. That's very, very cool. And the fact, too, I love how it's almost like, okay, now we're starting completely over. It's all a lot of the manual stuff, the old, cow and horse-pulled plows, things like that, and it works, right? We got spoiled with technology over the years with mass producing and all the machinery that in some cases, in all cases for the real world takes fuel, and fuel is becoming a dying commodity. It's harder to get. So yeah, it's cool to see all these things, the restarting over, the rebuilding, and Angela Kang coming in. That's another play on words too, because it's a new start of a new show again. So it does really feel like it's reinventing the show. Almost, I don't want to say resetting the show, but it does feel like a reinvention of the show. And a lot of people were kind of scared with that. Every time they change a showrunner, what are we in for, right? But it's not like she was just brought in out of left field. She's two things, I think. She's a super fan. Probably she could challenge any of us on our fandom, I would say, and probably win in spades, as much as we all think we're super fans. And number 2, she's been there for some of the best shows, and she's studied under Scott Gimple and Glenn Mazzara, and I'm not even sure she was there when Frank Darabont was there. I don't think so. But so there's no questioning what she can do with the show.
100%. Yeah. And there's been like kind of a continuous kind of I guess like lineage and communication, because like Scott is still very much involved with the show as far as I know. Yep. He's kind of like he oversees both series now, and so yeah, it's cool. There's a lot to keep track of in these two worlds that I guess are kind of like bleeding into each other more, these crossovers and stuff.
And with movies coming now too, I mean, for what they're talking about now, obviously there's movies. They're talking, they kind of toyed with this term digital property. So I'm assuming that's going to be video games and all kinds of other things like that as well too. So I think the universe is about to really, really expand more so than we've ever seen. Yeah,
it's cool. It's really cool. It almost feels like one of those video games you could play, like one of those MMORPG, more like World of Warcraft or something like that.
Like a role play type thing.
Yeah. Every time I play one of those, I'm like chatting with the other players that I run into there, and I'm like, you guys, this game is insane. Like, it never ends. Like, it's so big. Like, and it really is like a universe, and they keep adding these expansions, and it gets bigger and bigger, and like more detail. And I kind of feel like that's kind of what's happening with The Walking Dead. It's like it's becoming bigger and bigger, and like we're going forward in time, and there's flashbacks, and there's like starting another whole saga with this world, and then they're like merging, and then like you've got all these other stories. So it's kind of like it's cool to see more and more of it like take shape.
Growth, yeah. Oh, for sure it is. Before I get into this next question, this is a really, really good question from Amber, and there's already some debate on the question as well. And I always get in trouble when I ask this question as well, or not when I ask a question, I bring up this theory. I'll talk about that in a quick second. But you mentioned video games. Have you ever played the Telltale Walking Dead video games?
I haven't. Is Telltale the studio that makes them?
Yeah, no, they ran into some trouble. I'm not sure what the whole thing was, financial trouble, and it looked like they were going to do the final season. And Clementine is the girl. She might be like the Carl maybe, or she might be the Judith Grimes, but more so she's like the Carl, and she's kind of the central character that's gone from a very, very young child. In the games, led by different people, and she loses her loved ones, and she kind of fights for herself throughout the thing. And it looked like it wasn't going to ever happen, and so we weren't even going to be told the end of the story. Now, Robert Kirkman's people ended up picking up the game, and now it's coming out. I think there's actually a trailer coming out next Tuesday on it, which I can't wait to see. And it's going to be the final chapter. But what I think you should try it and get them. They come in several seasons, and they're kind of an animated thing where you don't have to be good at video games. It's just basically there's dialogue, and there's a million different case scenarios. So, so person talks to person B, and you have to press X, Y, whatever to choose your scenario. And, depending on your choice will really, affect the outcome. So you might choose to let someone die this time, and it has a huge, huge consequence later. You should try it. It's a lot of fun. I think you'd love it. It's no brainer. You can sit there with a coffee and just bang out in 1 hour. Not an hour, but you can beat a whole game in an evening. And there's 4 or 5 of them.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I love that idea. I just finished watching Bandersnatch on Netflix. Have you seen that?
No, I have not.
It's like the exact same thing. It's like they brought this idea of like choose your own adventure from video games into like a movie. So you could watch it many times and make many different decisions. No, I love that idea. Like it just makes it so much more immersive. Like you just feel like you're a character in it. Like your actual decisions have ramifications. No, I love that sort of thing. And I also just love the the feel and the rules of animation and like animated storytelling. It's like that merge between like cartoon and real world and like fantasy and imagination. You feel like a lot of things can happen there.
Yeah, there's so many things you can get away with in the animated world that you can't do in real life. Like this is a complete twist, off course here, but an animated thing I like a lot, thanks to the boy. The boy gets me to all these things is Rick and Morty. Love it to death. Certainly not. I might lose a couple parent points for letting him watch that, but he's 12. I mean, what hasn't he seen or heard these days? But Rick and Morty, I love it to death. And watching the uncensored versions is even better because the F-bombs that'll come out from Rick, and even all the cast members sometimes. Have you seen the show?
I've only seen the highlights of Pickle Rick.
Okay.
Like, everyone was going nuts about that. And I'm just like, this is so creative. It's incredible.
It's absolutely hilarious. Okay, so let's jump over to some questions. Amber Gray is asking if she has 2 questions. Are you in the second half of The Walking Dead? Now, that may be something you can't comment on, and that we won't take that as the life of Cal. Is that something you can comment on?
It's not, but
okay, that's fine.
I wish you luck in watching the second half.
No problem. That's okay. And here's another question as well, which you may not be able to comment on, but I'm gonna preface it. This is from Amber as well. I've been talking about this theory, and I share this theory with a few people. That about RJ, Rick and Michonne's child. And I've talked about this theory, and here again, this is just fan. This is James talking as a fan, and we won't hold you to anything. You can comment on this as a fan, or you can say no comment. So we're seeing these scars from Michonne and Daryl, these X scars on the lower part of the back. And what a lot of the theories are is, there's some torture involved somewhere along the lines, which we're going to probably see in the next half. And I'm not asking for comment on that. But so when we saw baby RJ in Michonne's house there, Michonne and Rick's no longer there, but the house, that everyone said, okay, well, he's real. We just saw him. And, Magna saw him as well too. But did she? And that's where people get really mad at me when I say that. They said, well, Magna saw him, so he's not a figment of her imagination. And I said, yeah, but the camera angles made it look like they're making us think that Magna saw RJ. I'm thinking that RJ, and a lot of people are thinking that he's not real. I mean, yes, real, but possibly lost during whatever this thing was. Now, first of all, if you're able to comment, cool, and don't I don't want any spoiler, don't want to give it away. But if maybe a fan, if as a fan, you can say what are your thoughts on it, or just choose not to comment.
No, that's crazy. I've never heard of that before.
Okay.
That's like some Sixth Sense level sleuthing there.
I see dead people.
Theories.
Yeah.
Man, I have no idea. Obviously, I love that idea.
Okay.
I think that makes it like totally psychologically thriller creepy, which would be exciting as hell. Yeah, I don't know. I like it. I would be a supporter of it, of that theory.
Okay.
Is that the theory? Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's exciting.
I won't take credit for the full theory. It is a theory I've shared, but I don't know who originated it. I got a buddy over in England. He talked about it a lot as well too. But yeah, it's a cool theory, and I think we'll see that because we saw some trailers of the back half, and we see Michonne with her hair the way she had it before, and I think that's another really cool thing. The way, like, we saw her hair up until today, basically the way her hair was, and then we see a flashback with her hair the old way, so that really lets you know you're back in time again. And she's just losing, pardon my language, because she's losing her shit on somebody and raging. And I'm thinking there is that moment where that had something to do with RJ. We'll see coming up, but it's cool. It's a cool theory, and I'm glad you could comment on it. Here's two other questions. From R Paris 34 says, were there any scenes that James filmed that didn't make an episode that may be released as a deleted scene somewhere? Maybe like in some DVDs or things, like anything you know of that maybe didn't make it that may see the light of day later?
Oh man, not that I know of. I mean, there was actually that same episode that we were talking about earlier where Maggie rescues the community from that car blasting music by running it over with a tractor. Like,
yeah.
There were some. There's this cool moment that never made it into the final cut where Eduardo and I like throw a ladder over the Barrington House balcony.
Okay.
Which never made it to the final cut, but was like really awesome to see. So yeah, who knows? That was like a really cool dramatic moment. But like, I mean, there's a lot going on there, and like definitely the focus is on Jesus trying to like get down as quickly as possible. But yeah, there was kind of that moment where like Maggie is calling out from the top of the FEMA trailer to the three of us, to like me, Eduardo, and Jesus, about like calling shot, like, we're coordinating what the battle plan is for this moment. So that was like a cool moment that yeah.
That'd be cool to see.
Yeah. It was pretty dramatic, and it worked perfectly.
Oh, that's a bummer too. But that's the thing. We'll look forward to the Blu-rays and things like that too. And sometimes they put certain webisodes out there and things like that as well too. So maybe we'll see some footage that way. It's always great to see those things. I know as fans of the show, especially when the show's off the air and we're waiting for these, these lulls to get back to the pickup, whatever. Or even if the season's done, we're waiting for Fear the Walking Dead to start or something like that. We as fans are craving all the content we can get. So I know if they can feed us some of those little things, there'd be a lot of happy people for sure.
Yeah. It'd be cool to see something like that. I don't know if this made it into that episode. I don't remember seeing it, but like, it's the one where like it's like a montage where Tara is kind of doing inventory around the hilltop. This is like in the first half of season 9, and like,
yep, remember that.
She's kind of checking in with people, right? And then like I'm teaching 2 of the new teenagers, Addie and Luke.
Yep, some martial arts.
Yeah, so they're like, I'm helping them perfect their staff routine there, and like there was like this cool shot that we did with like a drone where we're kind of going into more complex martial arts, like staff sequence stuff, part of a kind of a field-wide bird's eye view.
Oh, that'd be cool. I don't remember if I saw that or not. Maybe some fans in the chat can comment if they remember that, because I do forget that. I'll have to go back and see again, but I can picture that. That'd be really awesome. A really, really cool establishing shot of what Cal does. And I think that leads right into the next question. Ken Wong says, not much has been revealed about Cal pre-apocalypse. Now, I'm not sure if Ken reads the comics or not, but even in the comics, not a ton. Do you have any backstory? So can you kind of give us, as we'd say in Canada, Cole's Notes, or I think you call it in the United States, Cliff Notes. Can you give us a Cliff Note kind of who Cal is, again, for some people that don't know?
Oh, well, I mean, in this series, he's, obviously he's like one of the, like, the vigilant guards of the hilltop. I mean, you're right. There's very little said about his life beforehand, and I mean, I kind of don't like to. I have my ideas, but I don't want to like pinpoint it too much. I like everyone to have like their own idea based off of what they've seen. I also kind of don't want to like paint myself into a corner. Should like that be explored further down the line? But I mean, I like to think that like obviously he's someone who's fiercely loyal, but I think his time at the hilltop, hanging out with Jesus, I think he's picked up a few things as far as how to be effective hand to hand and with weapons. But I would like to think like he brought some of that with him to the table to begin with ahead of time.
And someone like Cal in the show, specializing with hand-to-hand combat, can be a real asset for the sole fact that, I know Daryl great with a crossbow and things like that too. And there's been other hand-to-hand weapons now with slingshots, which I think is awesome. I think that's totally awesome. For the sole fact that it's not alerting, it's not whether it be walkers or whisperers or whoever or human beings that you're trying to take out. You need that sense of silence, and that can be great. Martial arts, knives, sticks, whatever you can throw at them, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that idea of like the stealth kill for your enemy who's like only activated by noise is pretty awesome.
The stealth kill works really good in the video games as well too. So I gotta bring it over to The Walking Dead, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
I made a note. I made a note here, and I do have to read some of it because I didn't want to forget this, and I wanted to make sure I was accurate. So when I was going to have you back on the show back in December, I went back and started binge watching season 6 again, from 6 all the way through, and it was towards the end of season 6 where Cal made his first appearance, your first appearance on the show, season 6, episode 11. And the reason why I made notes on this, I thought that was such a powerful episode for many of you, including number one, first of all, your introduction to The Walking Dead. Xander Berkeley, Gregory, and Xander, great credits that he has to his resume, but he comes in right away. You hate this guy with every fiber of your being, which goes to show you how good of an actor he is.
That's good.
The roles of Jesus and Maggie. Maggie was not the Maggie that we know. She was just starting to show this possible leadership of the hilltop. And then, Jesus, of course, what can we say about Jesus? Probably one of the more underutilized great actors on the show. And, that's been public by everybody. He's even said it himself. But what a powerful way for you to come in at a great time. It was just timing, but you came in at a really hot spot. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, 100%. Like, we get to see this whole new world. Like, Jesus even says that, like, your world is about to get a lot bigger. And something that's really cool about, it's almost like the hilltop, everything you just said, like all of those characters, the transition of Maggie's first entrance into a place that she's going to like take over, the introduction of Jesus, who, in addition to having an amazing name, is just an amazing kind of like character. Oh, like the Jesus jokes were just like nonstop on set. Anything, if like Tom is even in earshot, if anything goes wrong, it's like, Jesus, what are you doing?
What did I do now, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. But no, I totally agree. I feel like super lucky to have been introduced at the moment that that you saw the hilltop, because that set itself is like super impressive. It's all practical. You actually have to climb up on those ramparts. Those doors are actually like 20 feet high. You have to actually open them and close them with your own hands. The forge in there, it's a real forge. Like, it's a blacksmith can use it. Like, these are actual tomato plants growing in there. You can walk inside all of those FEMA trailers. You can climb, like, we're actually climbing out of that window, like on Barrington House. Like, I think on that particular day, there's like livestock and animals that they bring in. It's like the attention to detail is like incredible. And I think it was very exciting to be like, I, as an actor, was meeting all those actors and characters for the first time, but it was cool because they were meeting the story of their journey is that they're coming to this new place and meeting all these new people for the first time too. So it had that like very like that parallel of like life and the story where we are kind of like both sussing each other out for the first time, and it's really cool because we don't. Everyone who watches the show, like Rick and the group of survivors, like Like there are people, there are heroes, but we at the Hilltop, we don't know who they are. So it's cool to regard them with a lot of suspicion at that time because we've been terrorized by the saviors for years, and it's cool to kind of go on that discovery of understanding them and like learn to trust them and just as an actor, awesome to meet and work with all of them. Xander Berkeley, amazing human being, incredible actor, definitely like a role model, and it's just really cool to be on set with him and shoot the shit and crack jokes.
But it's funny. People sometimes say, they hate this actor, they hate this actress. Like another show I love is Breaking Bad. I love that show to death. And you hate Walter White, you hate Skyler, right? You hate Walter White's wife, and it's like some of these actors and actresses actually get death threats because they're playing their parts so darn well that people hate what they think is the person. It's the character. But that goes to show you, like Gregory, he was hated. But I think there was something that was so funny, and I think this is where a lot of people loved you and loved Cal as a character right away, because you brought in humor. So you're the guy, you're one of the guards at the gate, and if I try to remember this scene, there's I think it was where Gregory's begging to come back in, whatever, and knocking at the gate, let me in, whatever, and I think Gregory's talking to Maggie, and so Cal comes up, says something about Cal, whatever, and he says Cal's delusional, whatever, and then you go over you reach over the top and you flip the bird at him, whatever, and that just sold your character right there. This is gonna be a guy that we're gonna love.
Yeah, no, that was an awesome moment. I'm really glad we could have that, and just like kind of more the backstory banter between the two of us.
Yeah,
it was like, I think the last time you saw me was like before Gregory went out on a ratting out mission to go talk to the saviors. It's like he calls me into his study and it's like, yeah, pack a bag. We're going to be spending a few nights on the road. Mm-hmm. And then like between he and I and our dialogue at the gate, it's like we get to learn what it's like to travel on the road with someone, like just one-on-one with someone like Gregory, like stealing a girl's pancakes and like how when I finally figure out what he actually is, his motivation is, it's like I can't be a part of that, and letting him go on his own way. So that being able to kind of fill in all the like have a conversation with someone with all that history, all that recent history kind of percolating underneath, that was like really great. And I think it was like, it feels like the middle finger that everyone had always wanted to give to Gregory that no one really had a chance to do.
Yeah,
so
that's a powerful finger.
Yeah. I was very, very happy and proud to flip it off to my friend.
I think that always all funneled through you, for every cast member that, a character, I should say, not cast member, but every character that hated him got to funnel that anger, and you were the courier of it, I guess we'll say. Yeah. That's hilarious.
Expedited.
Yep. Overnight delivery on that one.
Free shipping. Yeah.
It's funny when you're talking about being the first time coming onto the show, it's if the character's first time meeting you, you're the first time meeting them. I've never read an interview anywhere, at least publicly, where there hasn't been the same experience. Every single character that comes to the table, the staff is there, everyone from crew to cast to, people in head office, welcoming people with welcoming arms and open arms, and just make them feel like they're part of the family. I think that's got to really make that pressure like, wow, we're here. I can do this thing. I can just be me. It's got to be pretty cool for an actor on set.
Yeah, 100%. Because you walk into that set and it's massive. It's a massive operation. It's very easily it could be like a film, like a feature, like a studio $100 million feature film Hollywood set. It's, obviously depending on where you are,
right?
But every time you're at the Hilltop, that's what it feels like. Because it's huge, and like the amount of people that you have in every department is massive to kind of dial up to 100% reality, the life, to give tell the story of everyday life at that community. Mm-hmm. You've got people in the there's a landscaping department that's moving little bushes around.
Jeez.
to get the right look, and like de-stressing stuff and putting the right amount of smoke out of like the blacksmith, or like, you know, you've got like all these like extras who have like really detailed clothing, but they're also carrying very detailed props, and like they're given very detailed like direction of how like generally what to be doing in the background, just to all tell a cohesively like the same story of what it's like to be there. And yeah, it's amazing. It's like there's like no acting required. It's just completely realistic.
I love that, especially like when you're off the soundstage, you're not doing any soundstage shooting, like you say at Hilltop. You, after a while, you might almost feel like, okay, this just feels like you're not actually like, well, yeah, you're not acting anymore. You're just in a real world. There's gardening going on, you know, and obviously people doing smoke and things like that to, you know, set a scene. That's a little different story. It's some special effects, but the real deal, you know, trimming hedges and, you know, getting crops going, stuff like that. You'd almost feel like it's an everyday life now at that point.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like that scene that we were talking about earlier from 903, like where Maggie and I are on that wagon, like real mules, real functional, practical mule-drawn cart.
The real deal.
It's real. Like those mules are pulling that cart. I mean, we have a professional that can like help us actually steer the thing, but sometimes, you know, like there's like some mild interaction between the reins and the mules, and it's just like we're on an abandoned road.
Where anything could happen.
Yeah, and it's really incredible, you know, like the things that we get to do. I mean, you know, a lot of actors, they love acting because they get to play, and it just feels like that's all you're doing, you know. It's complete make believe.
I was gonna say that, make believe, exactly.
Yeah,
I think that would be fun too, especially more so than some of these you know, scenes that we see. Like we've seen some of these awesome, you know, scenes where, you know, it's a fast chasing scene, and in reality, it's a car being towed by another car on a flatbed, you know, and you got a camera crew beside riding, you know. So I mean, the actor can look away for a half an hour if he wants to and not crash into anything, you know. And we're always like, Rick, keep your eyes on the road, but he doesn't really have to, right? But being that you're controlling these reins of the mules and everything yourself, that's, even if it's for a brief moment, that's got to really put the realism in your mind, which in turn goes to the audience realistically too.
Yeah, I hope so.
No, I think it does. Yeah,
yeah, it's really great. Like, it's a lot of fun.
That's, I know, you can see it. You can see it's very, very contagious amongst people. And I like your passion that you have about it too. Obviously, that comes across just in your acting and your normal everyday life too. But I was telling the wife here, when we did the test call, I said this is going to be a fun show because you're passionate about it. You know, there's some people that are just in some gigs for a paycheck, and I know paychecks obviously are nice for everybody what they do, but the passion you have, I think you bring a lot yourself as James the actor to the table, and I think that's got to be well respected by your peers there as well too.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I've just always believed in, like, you know, work hard, treat people nice, and I don't know. They make it easy to do that over there.
Yeah. So. I always say work like you're trying. Work as hard to keep your job as you did to audition for the gig. You know.
It's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you get complacent and it's like just go on autopilot, while The Walking Dead is a show where dead is in the title and people do die, and you know, you don't give your 110%, which is, you know, obviously 100%. There's someone waiting to take your spot. You know.
Yeah, it's a wild, wild west out there.
That's right.
You never know what can happen.
A few more comments over in the chat here too. So back further when we were talking about RJ. So Amber was saying she was wondering if maybe he left with Maggie. That's a good theory as well too. Maggie could have, you know, brought him along. Maybe thinking that Michonne was out of her right mind because she did kind of go crazy there. Let me see here. Nocturnal Butterfly says, I think some Walking Dead fans would make most excellent detectives. I would agree with that. Some of the things they can put together. I remember, you remember back with the end of season 7, when you know, who Negan killed, and remember all these people like putting the scientific film together. Okay, with a blood splatter went over here from here, and if we mirrored that, it's like, oh my goodness, man. And I don't honestly know if anybody was right with that, with their theories, but there are some good detectives out there in the Walking Dead family, that's for sure. Let me see. Amber also says, this is amazing. Thank you so much, Walking Dead. Our Paris 34 says, thanks for asking the question. No problem. Nocturnal Butterfly also says, be sure to check out all of James' links in the description of this video. And she's been sharing a lot of your links as well, too, throughout the program in the chat.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, so showing some love your way there. Gamma says Xander did an awesome job on the show, and people really trashed him. And that's the thing. Next time you hate an actor or an actress, tell yourself this: that person's doing a really, really good job. Or sometimes, I mean, it's very, very, very rare that the actor is not doing a good job and it makes you hate them. And you got to go easy on the hate either way. But in most cases, wouldn't you say if you really despise a person, that they're probably doing that part really, really well?
100%, 100%. Yeah, it's funny because like when you mentioned Skylar Anna Gunn from Breaking Bad, like I watched every minute of that series, loved it to death. I think she's a phenomenal actress.
She is.
I mean, it's different because like I guess as an actor, I know what it takes to like pull stuff like that off. So it's like there's a lot of I'm able to think of it as an actor and as an audience member. So it's when I moved as an audience member, my actor side is like, wow, like well done. But it's true, a lot of reasons it's like something that's very exciting and interesting for an actor to play is someone who's not, I wouldn't even say like well liked, but like I think it's fascinating to explore why someone would behave in a way where people may not like them. Like clearly there's something more important to them than being liked, and that's always, I think, really exciting. And Gregory, for example, bringing it back to our show, like it's a world of survivalists and people who've managed to, I feel like the further along that we are in this show, we see the people, we're left seeing the people who've made it this far. And it's like you see all the different ways people have survived, down to oh God, what's her name? Who shows up with the twins with the glasses to get the technology to like Maggie in the Hilltop, like how to make windmills and stuff.
Oh, Georgie,
yeah. I mean, it's down to those kinds of people. So I mean, everyone's got a different approach, and I think it's cool. It speaks to the backstory of what happened to that person in up until that moment that you met them. It's like when you're walking down the street and you see someone that's like getting into a fight with you for like you're online at the grocery store, you're trying to get a parking spot, and so-and-so is being like a total D-bag, but it's like people don't usually act like that for no reason at all. I mean, it's definitely related to something in their day or their life, which is what the part we're not seeing. And to me, that's like the interesting thing about watching those kinds of characters on TV. It's like, okay, something happened with you.
That's right. Well, here's two opposite characters that you can both hate, and one of them you can hate and love. Well, Negan will say, for example, and I think we're going to get to see some really cool side of him, with Andrew Lincoln's departure. Maybe we'll see a softer side of Negan, who knows? But you kind of, for the most part, hate him, and you hate to like him. But let's take his right-hand man, ex-right-hand man. I don't want to say, well, Dwight could have been that right-hand man, second, whatever, but I'm talking about Simon. Yeah. Stephen Ogg, who, I love just thanks to Grand Theft Auto, and Breaking Bad as well. He was in Breaking Bad. But, you hated that guy, didn't really have any real charm. Negan's got some charm, so you can like him for the charm, whether he's a villain or not. But Simon, you hated him to his core because, he was becoming the boss. He wanted to be the boss and even planned to overthrow the boss. Kind of backstabbed Negan several times, obviously with Jadis's people and things like that. But another person you hate, and he's selling it home every time. I mean, what a loss to show on that one too. That was a bit of, you knew it had to go. Once you're going to start overthrowing your boss, your time's up.
What's that expression? Like, don't outshine the master.
Yes, yeah, which he did. And I'm thinking that one of those final scenes just before the fight, whatever, too. When Dwight basically sold him out, and he's out there, and he was plotting to kill Negan there and have everyone shoot. And then, I need you to stand right here, Dwight, and then Simon, stand over here, whatever. That was such an incredible scene.
Right.
Yeah, really bamboozled him there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's those kinds of it's almost like a gang culture, or you know what I mean? Where it's like, right? It's like they rule with like a fist of, they rule over everyone with fear of death all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating to see like what kind of people, what that brings out of people, and like how people jockey for power in those kinds of organizations or communities. I thought that was like an amazing moment that Negan had in one of the most recent episodes before the hiatus, like where Lauren comes back to Alexandria and she's just like has that amazing scene with Michonne and is like, you don't get it, what it's like to live with this every day for a year and a half, and she goes in there and just like crushes skull in, and but we get to I love that moment because it was kind of we're talking about people you love to hate and like figuring out why, and I felt like that was Negan's Wizard of Oz moment where he was always like this it was like his reputation was so much of his power. I mean, he is obviously a sadistic, murderous person as well, but like, everyone was like, what's your name? Like, who are you? Like, I'm Negan, I'm Negan, I'm Negan, I'm Negan. It was like manufacturing like the reputation of fear. Mm-hmm. And Maggie was like, step into the light, and he just wouldn't step into the light, and she grabbed his ass and threw him in the light, and you got this. It's almost like that was the metaphorical pulling of the curtain away.
Yeah.
We could see who he was, and we saw him so withered and just like destroyed.
He was broken. He was broken at that point.
Yeah, totally broken. Probably like the most absolute lowest and most vulnerable that we've ever seen him. And we just got to see him like begging to be with his wife and his bat and seal, and that was cool. That was awesome to see that side of someone that sadistic.
Yeah. Something that was funny, and I'm going to ask you one more question here in a second, and we'll get ready to wrap up. But I thought it was almost, it was spooky, scary, and like, okay, what's going to go on here? But almost you want to laugh too at one way. He's playing with his, tennis ball, whatever. He's bouncing off the wall, and it goes under the gate. And then, when he realizes the gate's open, it's almost like he's like, and he just, okay, I think I'm just going to leave now. That was, you almost want to laugh because you can almost picture like, like, oh my God, right? The gate's open. But it was a very emotional moment because you could have been wow, or you could have been laughing at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to ask you before we let you go here, and I really appreciate your time this evening, which has been great, and the fans are enjoying it as well too, was a question about Andrew Lincoln. Everyone always talked about him as being, kind of the I don't want to use the word ringleader on the set, but just a really positive role model. One of the first people on set, one of the last people off the set. And, you talked about meeting a lot of these people for the first time. Maybe you can share some thoughts on the atmosphere when Andrew was there, and with the departure of him now, how have things changed a little bit? Maybe just kind of share some positive things on how it was like meeting him and working with him over the years.
Oh my God, 100%. Yeah, Andrew was the first like series regular that I met on that set. It was when I got to location where they were filming. I guess it was the scene where they first meet Jesus.
Okay.
I was there for a hair and makeup test, which took a while because at that time Cal's hair was very short and they were really trying to get it like specific. So, but I was given an introduction to Andrew. He was just like, he was between takes, in his chair, and just couldn't have been a more welcoming, gentlemanly human being, and has been that way every moment since then that I've ever seen him on set. And I know everyone says the same thing about him. Like, it's just true. Like that first day that I was working, where so much of what's happening was shrouded in secrecy. It was just like the day before I found out who I was playing. Mm-hmm. I didn't have the script to read. I hadn't caught up on what was happening in the graphic novels. So it's the moment where the Rick's survival group first arrive and they come up to the gate. And it's like, and so many of us just didn't know quite what was happening. And it's like Andrew became Rick talking to the group. It's like catching us up to speed. Like, you don't know who these people are. Like, you just saw them murder like a 16-year-old boy in front of you, brutally beaten to death. Like, you don't know if these people coming up to your gates are if it's going to be more people like that. Like, you don't know if death is just one mistake away, like one mistake of like letting your guard down for one moment. and he was just whipping us all into, I think, this emotional state that we needed to be in, which was an amazing gift, you know. And he just really shined as like a leader and a coach and a quarterback, or a captain, I should say, at that time, especially. But you know, anytime, like, you know, I film a lot of stuff at the Hilltop, and a lot of that's with Lauren, and like Lauren is like awesome, and she's completely commanding, like setting the tone and the leadership and like the professionalism and the preparedness and like the goodwill all the time. So anytime that Rick is not there, you know, before and after his departure, it's like, you know, she's absolutely like just an incredible person to be around. And she and Daryl or Norman and, you know, all of them are just absolutely fantastic.
Well, something that Andrew's always said many times in countless hundreds of interviews he's always said, the show's bigger than one person. And when you have a favorite character, whether male or female on the show, it's hard to accept that, hard to believe that. You're like, oh, you know, Maggie's my favorite person, and she's the only person, or Rick's my only person. I've been a Rick fan since day one. And it's hard to accept that at first. And then you realize, when he's been gone now for quite some time, not 8 episodes, but I mean, there's 8 episodes so far. He was gone in episode 5 and 6. You get it after the fact. It's like, you know, you still miss him, but it is for the betterment of the show. And that's really hard to believe sometimes, that someone you've watched since the pilot episode can be gone and the show goes on. But it's almost like he's in the nest and he's letting the babies fly off, right, and do their own thing. And it's really coming to life without him. And we are going to get the blessing of seeing him in 3 movies and see where the story went. And I think that's going to be some closure that we didn't get as a death of the character, I think. Now, I'm sure we're not going to see him die in the movies. I'm not saying that. But a lot of people wanted to see a death of Rick to have that closure of losing that guy. So I think these 3 movies, the trilogy, whatever they're going to do with that, will give us the closure that a lot of us have kind of needed.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think just to comment on that point about how, like, yeah, the person that we started off with on episode 1 of the pilot is not with us anymore. Kind of goes back to what we were talking about with, like, this feeling like a universe that we're in, that we're exploring as people living inside it. Because, I mean, that's what would happen in real life. Like, it's almost like war, you know? Like, just because someone is your friend doesn't mean that they're untouchable. And it happens every day. Like, tragedies happen every day. And I think, yeah, it's like as an audience member who wants to be entertained, or almost like, I mean, it makes complete sense, right? Like, we've developed a relationship with someone for over 8 years, going into 9 years. And it's like, they do feel like that, those people feel like family. So it's like when they, just like we would in real life to a friend or a family member, like it's difficult to part with someone without that kind of emotional closure. Like, that's why we have funerals, right? Like, and I think that's speaking to the closure that you're talking about of what people wanted with seeing a death. Yeah, it's crazy. You know, sometimes you can't. Sometimes, like, there are freak accidents and tragedies that happen in life, and we don't have the opportunity for a neat and tidy closure in life. And I feel like, I mean, again, I feel like it's one of those awesome things that the show is able to do. It just kind of gives it that, like, feel that it's that much more real, because that's what it would kind of be like in real life. And I guess, like, in real life, what you would do is you would try to have your own, like, way of saying goodbye to that person. And I'm sure there's, like, tons of videos online of people doing it in their own way.
Yeah. No, it's very, very well said. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to the back half, and whether or not we'll see Cal, that's up for debate. But if we do or if we don't, I want to thank you obviously for everything you've done from season 6 through current. You've been a great asset to the show. I think like I said, your energy is contagious. I'm sure that's been a spin-off on everybody else on the show too. And I really want to thank you for your time tonight and actually going the extra mile when we had some technical problems there before Christmas, allowing you to come back again. So thank you very, very much. It's been a real pleasure having you this evening, and really, I cannot think of a better way than to start a Monday and starting off the entire year with a Monday. So thank you so much.
Eric, my pleasure. My pleasure. So great to chat and to connect and to just ring in the new year with this awesome conversation and hangout time. And thank you to everyone of your fans that are watching.
Thank you very, very much. I will say goodbye to you off the air, so don't go anywhere. We'll say goodbye here. But everyone, thank you so much in the chat. We're a great audience here this evening. Thank you for your great questions over in the chat as well, too, for James. And Walking Dead picks up, I think, February 10th, if I'm not mistaken. So we're looking forward to that. Not that far away, pretty much a month and a couple days. So not too bad at all. We'll look forward to that. Ken Wong says, thank you, James and Eric, and everyone saying thank you as well, too. Gamma says, well, do need to promote. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys and girls. Appreciate it. And I'll say goodbye to you off the air. We'll stick around one sec. See everyone. See you real soon. Until next time, cheers.
Walking Dead is brought to you by Design39 Media. Visit design39media.com for all your website, photography, and video production needs. Microphones for Walking Dead are provided by Rode Microphones. Get your Walking Dead swag available in the Broadstash Boutique at broadstash.com. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.